Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling quote-unquote ultra-left support of Russia slash Putin degrades slash endangers anti-US imperialist solidarity. So trying to, in 100 characters, trying to consolidate a couple ideas there. So this is a response to ongoing reactions I'm seeing mostly online, on Twitter, but also in news reports, for instance, on any Young Turks report from today, where we have this group of people now. They're diverse, so it's broader than the people I've discussed so far. But anyway, there's a group that's sort of ultra-left that also has tended to ally itself with the right or with Trump, as that the right wing has shown itself to be more quote-unquote isolationist, or in the last 6 or 7 years. And this has seemed like a tempting place or alliance for people on the anti-imperialist ultra-left, the anti-imperialist advocates and journalists. I mean, the names, for instance, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Anya Parampil, Dan Cohen, I think it's Norton, not Ed Norton, but anyway. These are Ben Norton. I'm sorry. So these are people who are they advocate. They say they're against U.S. imperialism. I mean, they do present facts and journalism that criticizes the U.S. war machine. Also, I want to include Mark Ames, Yasha Levine, and Ali Abunimah, and so and these are all people who I have, in certain aspects of their work, I appreciate that they are pushing out information that exposes U.S. imperialism, exposes the oppression of peoples mostly in the developing world or in the Middle East, and I think that there's some good in what they do when they touch on clear-cut issues that involve the U.S. and its war machine, involve its imperial reach, involve its suppression of the movements to national self-determination, or even governments that defy the U.S. In terms of its imperial aims, or the aims, and also the corporations that the U.S. government tends to be the gendarme for. So in any case, but they are, I think, stupidly following or the line, or at least the idea that Putin is their friend and that Russia is their ally, and in some cases there has been more of an alliance for them with Putin and Russia and RT, and so, which is also unfortunately a key information source for the other side, okay, or outside the framework of U.S. Mainstream media, let's say, certainly, and so, but they seem to create information in their profile and how they talk, that where they're never critical of Putin, never critical of or Xi, China, and they tend to do propaganda, it seems, for Xi and for Putin, and they don't understand the world as being a multipolar world where it's not simply the U.S. Domination that is causing all of the evil in the world. So anyway, and the most immediate concern I have is, I mean, there was the Aaron Mate incident that was talked about on the Young Turks today. I'll put a link in the description box. You know, if when they make a subject video for that particular segment, but then also Ali Abunimah on Twitter. He is probably the most important Palestinian journalist in the United States, and he is you know, someone who is a key source for exposing hypocrisy, or not just the oppression of Palestinians in Israel. You know, actions by the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, the Israeli Army, and also the Israeli government, and in the oppression of the Palestinians. Also, various questionable or, you know, anti-Palestinian positions by, you know, European countries, by the United States. So anyway, so he's a good source for those items, but at the same time, he stupidly, I think, has allied himself with Putin, and he does consciously or unconsciously propaganda for Putin by, in this case, you know, where Putin is clearly, you know, trying to erase a particular nationality that he doesn't like on his border. They happen to be white, and many of them, some of them are fascist and racist and so forth and so on. So they have unsavory characteristics within the Ukrainian polity overall. Not everybody, and it's not all that the Nazis, which there are a group in Ukraine, and they're also in the Ukrainian government, and you know, in ways that are troubling. But that doesn't erase the principle that they need to self-determine, and they not under the heel of Putin, and just as the Palestinians need to self-determine, not under the heel of the Israeli government. So it's not good when Putin does it, and bad when Israel does it. It's bad when both of them do it. So anyway, this I think, and it's stupid because they've done years. Some of these individuals have spent years establishing a position of fairly reliable information about some of these struggles. Liberation, we should call them. Some of them are liberation struggles, or just counter-hegemonic struggles in among nations, and also between in terms of movements. So they've done some good work in that area. Let's call it anti-imperialist, anti-U.S. imperialist, but they seem to think that the supporting the counter-hegemonic great powers in their imperial ambitions is part of the deal, and that's not anti-imperialist to me. That's not principled anti-imperialism, and it makes all their information that they provide somewhat suspect. You wonder sometimes, well, are they being fed a line? Are they, I mean, if there's convincing video and so forth and so on, you can kind of say, well, you know, that's real good video, you know, I believe what they're saying. But there's also, anyway, you know, and there's a lot to, you know, criticize. In, for instance, I mean, we have various journalists and even some government officials in the European space and also in the United States who are talking about, well, obviously the Ukrainians are being treated, better because they're white and they're Europeans. Now, Sam Cedar was mentioning that the Ukrainians have advanced into whiteness, okay, and become whiter in the last 6 or 7 years. The Slavs used to be considered to be, on not exactly the most quote unquote whitest, or to enjoy all of the privileges of whiteness in the world media stage, and also but now, for whatever reason, or now for a number of reasons, they're being accorded this status more, and they're being treated with much greater favor as refugees and so forth and so on. And it's infuriating, and it's that they get better treatment than refugees from Turkey and from Syria and from anywhere, where people are of a different religion or different skin color, so forth and so on, from Africa. So this is that. Anyway, so that one can do both things. In other words, one can say, I'm against Putin's imperialism against another Slavic people or another people, whomever they are, whatever is. At the same time, I am opposed to the differential treatment that they're getting, or that the discriminatory treatment that refugees and people of different ethnicities get in general around the world, and so forth and so on, and the treatment that they get. And so, and that discriminatory treatment doesn't make the invasion of Ukraine good. Okay, that the fact that, well, no, they're not perfect, they're not angels. So there's often a both sidesism that that is kind of an attempt to say, well, they're not angels, so therefore, let's just let the dice fall where they may, or I support, the guy who's my ally, implicitly or explicitly, or the country, Russia and or China, or so forth and so on. So anyway, so I think that these movements, and this is something that it's not just this recent crisis. I have always been troubled by the casualness by which people on the left have mingled with RT, among other things. Have used RT, have gone on RT. Mike Papantonio is still on RT, and Farron Cousins, for instance, appears on RT. And Tom Hartman used to be on RT, and these are all people I implicitly, I think, do good work, and I think they shouldn't be on RT. They should dissociate themselves from it, because it's part of a propaganda operation, and part of the propaganda operation is that it accommodates the left wing of Western countries and gives them a platform to speak about certain things, and at the same time, it makes them appear, it compromises them, it gives them a sense of not being principled and of being limited in their coverage of, among other things, Eastern Europe and Russia. So anyway, so I've always thought that, and plus not just RT, but also just for many years, Greenwald and Mate and Blumenthal and so forth and so on, always pretending as all the evil in the world comes from the United States. And in saying that, I'm not excusing the United States for anything it does and for its ruthless capitalistic domination of the world economic system and world political systems, though that's weakening, okay, and but still, you know, that's a problem, enormous problem. But it's not the only source of evil, and there are different kinds of evil in the world, and China is differently evil than the United States, and Russia is differently evil than the United States. They also, all of them do some good as well, okay, in the world. So it's actually ambiguous. They all have some good aspects to them, though, you know, with, you know, there's even, you know, there's always something to look at, you know, and also just these are peoples these are, when I'm talking about countries, these are peoples that can also do better, and they also can create new and better, more democratic systems in their countries. So so anyway, this is just a general you know, issue that I think needs that people, there needs to be some thinking, and it's a hard change. It's a big change for some of these people, these journalists to and commentators to decide, and political actors to decide that no, I'm not aligned with the great powers that are abroad. I'm for a multipolar world where even small nations can determine their own destinies, and we can have a you know, a more peaceable world. The world doesn't rely so much on military force. But right now, as I have been commenting on the last couple videos, then there is a need currently for counterbalancing military strength, in particularly at the margins of these big powers, or even even in the case of Rwanda, you know, where there was there was no big power involved, but there was the military involved in a genocide, and so a small government, but anyway, there was you know, an ideology or or an ethnic you know, supremacism that took over a particular governmental apparatus, and then attempted or did commit a fair amount, or you know, a genocide in that small country. So anyway, so and therefore there was at that time a need, which unfortunately wasn't there, of some kind of counterbalancing force, UN peacekeepers, and it wasn't sufficiently, you know, people didn't believe that it was going to happen, and it did happen. So so anyway, so I'm just expressing what sounds obvious to some people, and what to other people sounds like anathema to their long-held political positions, but I'm just putting this out there as another marker here. Anyway, so if you like the video, please like, or what I'm saying here, or if just the idea of me broaching this subject and you want to, you know, approve of that, please like the video, and also please chime in the comments with your observations about this particular issue. And also, if in general, if you're liking Politics 2100, please subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.